Yes, folks, you the taxpayer will now have to fork out another $3 million to fund gender reassignment surgery. This is despite the fact that back in 2016 there was some 280,000 Kiwis waiting for elective surgery. So I'll start this off with Jacinda Ardern Media.
Meanwhile, the Rainbow community is welcoming more government funding for gender reassignment surgery. The waiting list for surgery is currently about 50 years, with taxpayers covering the cost of an average of 2 operations a year.
And folks, for men transitioning to women, this costs around $50,000, and for women transitioning to men, this costs around $200,000 each.
But an extra funding boost will see another 14 people able to get the surgery each year. Kushla Norman reports.
It's opening day at this transgender-friendly op shop in the Wellington suburb of Newtown.
It's quite difficult to find in bigger sizes the really kind of cool, funky clothes, and they're often really, really expensive. So we're really excited to be able to be a place where people can come and find those.
But the outfits, wigs, and accessories are just a fraction of the cost of being transgender. Kate's already spent lots of money on doctor's visits and hair removal treatment. Now she's on the waiting list for gender reassignment surgery, which, if she paid herself, would cost tens of thousands of dollars.
But she's he is quite happy for me to pay, me and other taxpayers.
My body is a source of immense discomfort. It gets in the way of relationships, it gets in the way of me living my life. I'm really, really looking forward to going swimming.
More than 160 people like Kate have a 50-year wait for the surgery. But the government boost of $3 million will drastically cut the time.
It means hope for me. It's a really, really important part of my transition.
Ahi Wihongi says the funding relieves a huge financial pressure.
If they had assets like a house, they were maybe remortgaging or they were selling. Maybe the parents were mortgaging their houses. For a lot of people, that just wasn't even possible. So, yeah, people were just giving up hope.
Alison paid for her surgery before there was ever public funding available. She says it was life-changing.
And meant I was able to get on with my life instead of having this great big thing sitting in the way of progressing my education and my career.
But Alison and others in the community say the government must consistently invest if the wait list is to be tackled.
In this budget, we're making a big step in the right direction for gender confirmation surgery, but it's going to need to grow if we're going to clear the wait list.
So now we must ask the question, why are we paying for surgery when gender dysphoria is a problem of the mind? And to answer that question, let's listen to Dr. Michelle Cretella.
But first up is Dr. Cretella. Dr. Cretella is the president of the American College of Pediatricians. Next will be Professor Paul Roos, Dr. Paul Roos. He's an associate professor of pediatrics, endocrinology, cell biology, and physiology at Washington University School of Medicine. And then last will be Alan Josephson. Dr. Josephson is a professor of child and adolescent psychiatry and psychology in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Louisville. So please join me in welcoming our panel.
Thank you for the invitation, Ryan, and the introduction. Congratulations, it's a boy. Or, congratulations, it's a girl. In 20 years, nearly 20 years as a practicing pediatrician, that's often how my patient relationships started. Our bodies declare our biological sex. Biological sex is not assigned. Biological sex is imprinted by our DNA at the moment of conception, and it's in every single cell of our bodies. Human sexuality is binary. You either have a functioning Y chromosome and will develop into a male, or you do not, and you will develop into a female. Identity is not biological. Identity has to do with our thinking and our feelings. Thoughts and feelings are not hardwired before birth. They develop over time. Our thoughts and feelings, our self-perceptions may be factually correct, or they could be factually wrong. And I'll give you some examples. And within these examples, you're going to understand or come to see fact versus ideology. If I were to walk into my physician's office today and say, "Hi, Dr. So-and-so, I'm Margaret Thatcher," my physician is going to look at me and diagnose me as having a delusion, give me an antipsychotic, and send me to a therapist. If I walk up to that same physician and say, "I am a man," my physician will say, "Congratulations, you're transgender."
So there's your answer, folks. All this transgender nonsense is all driven by ideology, not fact.
There is no blood test, there is no imaging, there is no confirmatory way to diagnose transgender except from the person's word. Take the person's word for it. Because identity is not in the body, it is in our thinking. Another example. If I go to my physician and say, "I am so anxious, so depressed, I'm suicidal some days, I am an amputee trapped in a normal body," I will be diagnosed with body identity integrity disorder. If I go to the same physician and say, "I am a man, please refer me to a breast surgeon for a double mastectomy," my physician is expected to do so. So mainstream, most, not all medical organizations, but most mainstream medical and psychological organizations essentially say if a patient walks into you wanting to have a healthy arm or leg removed, they're mentally ill. But if a healthy patient, biologically normal and healthy patient, walks in and wants their breasts or a penis removed, they are transgender, and don't you dare tell them anything differently, because that's discrimination. No one is born with hardwired thoughts and feelings. No one is predetermined before birth to be transgender. We know this scientifically by looking at twin studies. Any trait that is set, biologically set, prior to birth will be found in identical twins 100% of the time. So if you have a trait that is only determined solely by, let's say, prenatal hormones changing the brain, by DNA altering the person, that's going to be found in identical twins 100% of the time, meaning that if you have an identical twin who's transgender, his identical or hers identical twin should also be transgender. This is not the case. In studies, the majority of transgender twins were found to differ significantly. All right. Dr. Cretella, why should we believe you? Can you give us an example? Yes, I can. We're not saying these children with this thought process should be ignored. I had a patient, we'll call him Andy. This was a good 10 years ago. Between the ages of 3 and 5, little Andy increasingly played with girl toys, stereotypical girl toys. He really made friends more easily with girls, and he started telling his parents, "Mommy, Daddy, I am a girl." I referred the family to a therapist. Now, the therapist's focus was basically to understand Andy and his family's story, to look at those family dynamics, because oftentimes, sometimes with mental illness in children, it may be due to mental illness in a parent or both parents. It may be due to child abuse, but often children are misperceiving just what may be benign family dynamics. A couple months, it's hard work. Therapy is hard work. But during one session, they had a breakthrough. Andy had a truck and a Barbie. He put the truck down. He looked up at his parents and said, "Mommy and Daddy, you don't love me when I'm a boy." Now the therapist had something to work with. These parents were great parents. They were super parents. But when Andy was 3, he went from being an only child to having a sister born with special needs. The mom and dad were great parents, but his sister needed a whole lot of care and attention. And Andy internalized, not every child would internalize this way, but for Andy, he did. Mommy and Daddy love girls. If I want them to love me like they did before, I have to be a girl. It's not conscious. It's all subconscious. Now, here's what would happen today. Today, Andy's pediatrician would refer Andy and his family to gender specialists or a gender clinic. The parents would immediately be told, this is who Andy is. Why? Because here's how you diagnose a transgender child. The child must consistently, persistently insist that they are not their biological sex. Bingo.
So we can clearly see from that, folks, that these gay agenda-driven lefties are very dangerous people. They'll actually put ideology ahead of children.